Hello and good morning to everyone back in the UK. Welcome to Inside Tack with Bell staff. This is our analysis show where we give you live reaction from the racing out in the water in Auckland on the Hauraki Gulf today. My name's Matt Cornwell. I'm the rules advisor with INEOS Team UK, and I've got a couple of our stars from the sailing team with me today. I've got Leigh McMillan, who's our flight controller, and Graeme Spence, one of our grinders. Much more of a positive date. We've got some great clips to look at. We'll look at those in a minute. But first of all, I'll just chat to you guys a little bit. A much better day. We lost 2 races, so still not perfect. But it seemed like the big plus today is that we did 2 races where we foiled all the way around the course. Leigh is our flight controller. Talk to us about what your role is, keeping that boat up and flying all the time.
Yeah, so we've got 2 flight controllers on the boat. Myself on the starboard side and Luke Parkinson on the port side, and Giles also, he controls the pitch of the boat with the rudder rake through the manoeuvres and for some of the straight lines when either Parker or myself need to get on the handles and help the boys with a bit of a small amount of power that we're able to, certainly that I'm able to contribute. But then ultimately, yeah, we're responsible for flying the foil kind of in its optimal position. So we're looking at the foils and looking at our screens. We've got right in our line of sight. It's giving us kind of all the feedback and the data as well, and just trying to keep the foil and the boat in its absolute optimal position to kind of keep the boat going fast. And then we've obviously got to share those roles and through the tacks and the jibes and in controlling our own foils and keeping the boat nice and level and with its low immersions to keep the speeds as high as possible. So yeah, today we made a nice step forward in kind of bringing it all together and kind of getting into the rhythm a little bit with it all, and I think that showed with the way we kind of got around the course.
Yeah, that's great. That's definitely a plus. It's a step forward, isn't it? It's a small step forward, but it's a good thing to see. It sounds like there's a lot of concentration involved in that role.
Yeah, and you know, it is a lot of kind of handing over and you know, so you have to be kind of very quick and clear with your comms, and kind of the timing is super critical with all the different people involved in kind of the choreography. But you know, we're just getting better at it all the time, and you know, just making nice steps forwards and kind of just always trying to find those little bits of you know, improvements that we can every day. So it's definitely coming together on that side of things.
Yeah, nice. I like that choreography. It is like dancing, isn't it? And with all the variances we have in sailing, I think they say there's more variables in sailing than any other sport, and I think that's true, isn't it? And certainly that's a big part of your role.
Yeah, you can really kind of have a big impact on the other guys around you if you're not quite, you know, on the same wavelength. So you've all got to be absolutely on song with each other. Yeah,
well, good job today, certainly. Graeme, you're one of our grinders, but you're also a bit of a systems engineer, systems expert. You're working with the guys that are doing, there's a huge system team involved with all these teams, isn't there, and certainly with ours. And also sort of talk to us about how important these systems are and how hard these guys are working behind the scenes with your input too, to keep the boat going, keep improving, keep fixing all the faults that are coming along.
Yeah, that's right, Matt. So on board I'm grinding, but then associated with that, a lot of the grinders take on the responsibility to liaise between the rest of the sailing team and our engineers designing the team, and also the technicians who are maintaining the system that we're sailing with. And it's hugely important. You know, this is a boat that we create, and the more efficient it is with the power we're putting into it, the more we can use the trim the sails, and the more power we can put into the boat, so the faster the boat will go. So it's important to approach it from both ends. You can't just wail on the handles. You need to make sure that you're doing it somewhat cleverly. Yeah.
And that's really the modern America's Cup, isn't it? In a nutshell,
it's certainly turned into the modern America's Cup.
Big deal now.
Yeah, and reliability. You know, these are incredibly complicated boats, and it's a new class. It's not like Formula One or something like that, where they're very small design iterations and they're very much doing the same thing year in, year out with very small changes. Now, this is completely new. Everyone's had a couple of years to figure it out, and we're doing things with the systems that have never been done before. Some things work really well, other things take a bit of time to get the reliability in, but we're all, you know, we're searching for the small gains to make the boat faster.
So I've heard it said that these are the most complex race boats ever designed. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, it's certainly the most complex race boat I've ever stepped foot on, and you know, the last campaign I did in Bermuda, I would have said the same thing about those boats. And you know, the technology is moving rapidly. The demands to foil across the water is completely different to what a traditional sailboat that's in displacement mode sailing through the water. everything's happening faster, and to do that you have to move on the cutting edge of technology, and you need to embrace technology, which sailing hasn't necessarily had to do as hard as it has to do now.
Yeah, of course. Fascinating stuff. And a big day today. 2 losses, as we said, but taking the positives, it was against Emirates Team New Zealand. 2 races, both of them against them. The defenders, the champions. Let's have a look at some of the highlights there, because I think, this is the first pre-start, and there was a fantastic little incident there where actually we had them lined up and we kind of went for the kill a little bit, tried to give them a penalty. We were on starboard tack and they were on port. Leigh, why don't you just sort of talk us through that little incident there and what was going on the boat?
It was, it was pretty exciting in that pre-start. We really had the bit between the teeth and felt like we had got them into a position where we should be able to get a penalty. We were on starboard and we were pointing straight at them. And, we had to kind of take avoiding action. We had to do like an aggressive roundup to avoid them and then tack into the line. We still had a really good position off the start line, but ultimately, we were really hoping to get a penalty on them and get them further behind. It was great action from Ben and Giles and the way they put both the pre-starts together today and, went really aggressively at it. And it was nice for us to kind of really, just be able to kind of handle, deal with the boat handling and be able to kind of keep up with them and do a good job in kind of converting it into a position for them to be able to do that. But they did a great job. Did that feel
like it was possibly a penalty to you if you were the umpire?
I mean,
with slightly tinted glasses, but
it's hard to, they obviously got a different perspective on it, but when you're kind of pointing at them doing 40 knots and you want to get out, you don't want to get too close. You kind of feel like you got to get out, avoid those kind of high risk situations, and it looked like we kind of had them lined up for quite a long time and then had to take avoiding action. But I haven't seen the explanation on the umpire bot, but it'll be interesting to see.
And it's probably worth pointing out to the people at home, the umpires, they see they're sitting in an office here in Auckland and they see a virtual version of that happening. So it's very different to your perspective of being on 2 yachts doing 40 knots towards each other, isn't it?
Yeah, they've got obviously a lot of systems in place to make it as user friendly for them to be as clear cut as possible with their decision making, and I think it does work very well. But obviously I think the one thing they don't have is a perspective of the speeds and actually the controllability at times. Doing a roundup at 40 knots is you can lose the rudder and you can skid and you can get a little vent and skid sideways. So you've got to put quite a lot of extra margin of safety in there to not absolutely have one, and so maybe there's a little bit of a gap between where we feel like we should be avoiding and where they think we can get to. But I'm sure it'll all come together as time develops and these discussions will happen in the background. Yeah,
and it was still an even start at the end of the day, wasn't it? And let's not stop with the pre-starts. We'll look at pre-start 2 as well, because the action didn't stop there either. Another really close one with lots of action, and this is one where they did get a penalty. Graeme, why don't you talk us through this one?
Yeah, so this is the first time I've seen this, Matt, because I spent most of this race staring at my display.
Yeah, so Graeme was on board, but he's busy at this stage.
I was on board.
The life of a grinder.
The grinders basically map the whole race out on a series of very simple communications that come from Ben, just so that we're prepared to press our buttons at the right time and grind from hard to harder.
But it was again a really nice job. Ben and Giles just kind of really trying to take it to the Kiwis. They have got a bit of a performance advantage in a straight line at the moment, and in the tacks and jibes. So, trying to give ourselves the best possible opportunity to get ourselves out in front at the start. They did another great job, and it was nice to see some of the practices that, a specific kind of pre-start routine that they've been looking a lot at in the simulators kind of come into play. And again, it was a lot of tacks and jibes in the pre-start. Didn't seem like there's a lot of room in the pre-start box today, but we were able to kind of keep up with everything that was going on between Giles, myself, and Parker, and kind of flying the boat around and kind of force them into an error ultimately by kind of taking it to them. So
we essentially both had the same manoeuvre to execute there, and we were both doing simultaneous jibes, and we jibed and stayed on the foil, and they made a bit of a mess of their jibe. So it's in these boats, it's going to come down to executing the manoeuvres, because as soon as you're in displacement mode with the hull back in the water, it takes a long time to rebuild. So
Yeah, lovely work.
Had that one over them.
Yeah, brilliant. That's fantastic. And it's lovely to hear that that's something that you've practiced. That's something that you've looked at in the simulator, as you say. So the guys can actually go into the simulator and practice doing these very maneuvers without having to take, you know, this multi-million-pound yacht on the water with all the personnel. Actually, they can do the practicing here, and that's something they worked on. That's fascinating.
Yeah, no, the sim's been, you know, a big part of our kind of campaign the whole way through, and specifically now we've got like a, you know, tuned down version that Ben and Giles can get on, just the two of them. They've got their own boats and they can race each other, so they, you know, they run through a lot of scenarios, and every time something comes up on the water, we're able to kind of get on there and run through it. So, you know, it's been really great. This morning they were there kind of doing that exact maneuver and kind of changing it up a little bit to, you know, we got in the last couple of days against Prada with a similar kind of scenario, approached it from a different angle, and we got ourselves a little bit pinned out twice. So this approach, obviously, you know, was a nice alternative and worked out really well for us.
Yeah, great when something you're practicing comes off and pays off for you. That's great. And then you were off to the races. You had a huge lead. Obviously, we've seen the Kiwis are really fast, but the race, even when they did first manage to get ahead, there was still a few lead changes after that. We've got a good clip of it coming up here.
Yeah, so, you know, we were a click ahead around the top mark. We did get a little bit of a loss. They got some good pressure down. They split from us at the top and got some good pressure, so they did manage to get across us. We had to take a avoiding action, but we did then get to the favoured side and get a good run down that boundary and get back in front of them again. So, you know, there's certainly glimpses of us finding the pace. We just need to, you know, keep searching, get it more consistently, and you know, there's certainly a bit of emphasis on the tacks and the jives a little bit, and where, you know, there's a bit of extra speed loss coming in those manoeuvres. You know, despite the fact we feel like we're doing, you know, quite a nice job of the choreography with that, there's still some speed loss that we kind of struggling to kind of attribute to any particular area at the moment. So yeah, it was nice to be jostling with them around the course, and in the end they did kind of step away from us a little bit, and we you know, unfortunately kind of lost the races. But you know, it was a great effort by everyone, and I think, you know, we're still positive about the gains that we're making day by day, and keep taking that forward. Right.
So it shows the potential that you've got in the sailing team. If you can get the boat speed up to where it needs to be, or where the Kiwis are right now, then races can be won, huh? Yeah. Before we go, I've got a couple of questions from people back in the UK, and people back at home, please keep sending your questions into us. We want to hear from you guys. We love the support. Thank you very much. First of all, we've got one from Ian Kane here. Definitely one for you, Graeme. What are the grinders grinding?
What are we grinding? Yeah, it feels like I need to ask that question sometimes, but we're grinding we call them the manual systems on the boat, so it's anything above the water. The only thing that's powered are the foil flaps underneath the water, and so all the sail controls. So we're adjusting the traveller for the mainsail, so that's one of the high frequency adjustments, so you'll often see the back of the mainsails moving quite a lot, so that's all power from our handles. We're adjusting the runners, which is holds the rig up at the back, so we have to transfer that every time we manoeuvre. We hydraulically change the angle of attack of the mast. We change the depth of the mainsail by using hydraulics on the boom to trim that for the course or the wind, and we're having to tack the jib on these boats with a winch, which is a rule mandated requirement. So that's one of the more intricate things, because we're essentially just all we're allowed to use in the rule is a aluminium drum, and we have to mechanically spin it using the handles. So old school, yeah. So we're constantly flicking between the mechanical and the hydraulic systems, which are driven with rotary hydraulic pumps.
Okay, great. One more quick question. This is from Peter Smith. What does the keel on the bottom of the boat do? It's probably one for you. The keel on the bottom of the boat. It looks like a keel, doesn't it? But tell us, Leigh, it's not, is it?
There are two keel-like foils, but ultimately they are actually designed to have quite a lot of weight in the bottom of them, so that if we do capsize, theoretically the boat should self-right. But really they're there to carry the foils and to enable us to foil around the course. So they're lifting
hydrofoils made of lead.
They are.
There's
a lot of lead down there, okay. But then there's a lot of very strong steel to, you know, try and get the most efficient foils possible and the best possible shapes in order for us to fly as quickly as possible around the course.
There we go, Peter. Hope that answers your question. Let's have a quick look at the scoreboard going into tomorrow. Still not looking great for us, but that was after a tough day yesterday and then 2 races against the defenders and the champions today. So hopefully we can start putting a couple of points on the board tomorrow. And then we've got tomorrow's schedule here. So first race against the Italians, 12 minutes past 3, and then we have the Americans at 20 minutes to 5 in our times. Thank you very much, guys. It's a pleasure having you here. I'm sure we'll get you back up here again sometime. And thank you, everyone at home. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for tuning in. And we'll be here again tomorrow for Inside Tack. Thank you.